Welcome to our third day of our Forest Governance Forum. Today we have another interesting lineup of presentations, and our session is going to look at the critical role that non-state actors, society, private sector, and others play in efforts to improve forest governance and also issues around climate change and biodiversity conservation. Just to give you a bit of context, many of you are probably aware of this. This Asia Pacific Forest Governance Forum is being implemented within a broader project that is working with non-state actors in 4 countries in the Asia Pacific region. And the project is seeking to achieve 4 key outcomes. The first one is around increasing the capacity of local, national and provincial non-state actors to monitor forest resources use and also forest condition within their jurisdictions. The second one is to use that information to promote and increase transparency and access to information and accountability. And then the third one, through facilitation, is to create viable and constructive networks of well-informed and well-equipped non-state actors. And then the fourth one is around ensuring that we have informed and effective participation of non-state actors in all the key national and provincial forestry policies, including flagged and REDD+. So as is expected with all Forest Governance Forum, we encourage you to participate as much as possible. And since this Forest Governance Forum is online, we encourage you to use the question and answer function, which is right at the bottom of your screens. Please use that Q&A function instead of the chat function to post your questions, and the presenters will, as much as possible, try to respond to your questions. We'll also have a question and answer session at the end, but all the questions that we'll be focusing on during the question and answer session will be questions that we would have collected from the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. We are also happy to let you know that we also have simultaneous interpretation, and it's available in 2 languages, Indonesian and French. Before I hand over to our chair for today's session, Bruno Kamat, I would like us to watch a short video on some elements of our project. Thank you.
The natural world is in crisis. At least 1 million species are at risk of extinction. Changes in our climate are causing unprecedented natural disasters, and the pressures we're putting on our planet are unsustainable. The BirdLife International Partnership is fighting on the front line of this crisis. With partners in over 100 countries, we are a diverse and ambitious network united by a common mission to conserve not just birds, but all nature. We work with local communities and connect across geographies, cultures, and sectors, recognizing that birds and nature know no borders and that collective action is needed to tackle the biodiversity crisis. Since we were founded in 1922, we've made incredible leaps forward in our work to protect and conserve the natural world. But we recognize that we can't stand still. As the natural world comes under increasing threat, we need to build on our strengths and find more effective and sustainable conservation solutions. This is the inspiration for Hatch, a new platform to support the global conservation community where it's needed most, providing us with the opportunity to collaborate, to learn, and to access the resources we need to scale our work. And with this help, BirdLife partners have already been able to achieve great things. Our partner in Lebanon has revived HEMA, a traditional landscape management technique which helps local communities develop sustainable livelihoods through ecotourism and organic farming. In Sierra Leone and Liberia, our partners have effectively engaged and influenced governments to promote and conserve some of the most important rainforests in Africa. Across Europe and Africa, over 30 BirdLife partners have joined forces to protect migratory birds. Working with local communities, governments, and other NGOs, They've coordinated the actions of thousands of people to protect these birds on their long journey between their breeding and wintering grounds. But we need your help. As the pressures on our natural world increase, the work of Hatch matters more than ever. Hatch enables our global conservation community to thrive. Working together, we can make a world of difference.
Good morning and good afternoon to all participants today. Today is, for those who have not been involved in previous sessions, today is the third session of the forum. The session is called The Role of Non-State Actors of Different Kinds in Forest Governance and Biodiversity Conservation. The session objectives today are to listen to insights and lessons from experts in the field of forest governance, explore and identify how can civil society organizations bridge the gap between public and private interests in the kinds, what they are, what they do, how could they be more involved, why they are important in forest policy decision-making and implementation. We will also discuss the value of local, national, regional networks for forest monitoring and management, and explore how best to build the capacity of these forest governance networks. So let me start by introducing myself very briefly. My name is Bruno Kamard. I'm your facilitator or your chair today. I'm based in Bangkok. I work for the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, and I'm coordinator, regional coordinator for Asia Pacific of the FAO EU FLECT program. FLECT stands for Forest Governance, Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade. Today we have distinguished presenters from the World Resources Institute, Ms. Zoraida Said. We have Jean Thomas from PNG, Tenkile Conservation Alliance. We have Mr. Abu Meridian from Kacem Telapak, an independent forest monitoring organization in Indonesia. We have Dr. Ernie Guang, who's a consultant with USAID, also associated with our program in the Philippines, and a senior advisor to the Society of Filipino Foresters. We have Mr. Samsung Pedragosa from Haribon Foundation, one of the partners in this program. And we have Mr. Ricky Firmanda Ibrahim, private sector representative today from GeoDipa. So we have a very tight schedule. We have 6 presentations, and I would like to start with the first one. By the World Resources Institute. So as Richard said at the beginning of this session, we encourage people to ask questions in the Q&A section, which is next to the chat. And I see that some people are already starting to ask questions. So that we will filter, the BirdLife team will filter these questions. We encourage the presenters to answer them in the Q&A section. If questions remain unanswered and are important to share to the entire session, we will ask the BirdLife team to extract them and to present them during the Q&A section. So thank you very much. Please, WRI, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bruno. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zoraida Said, and today I would like to share our work on strengthening the role of civil society organization in forest monitoring. Next, please. In general, in Indonesia, there are 2 groups of IFF, or Independent Forest Monitors. One we know as JPIK, or Indonesian Network for Independent Forest Monitors, whose role is mandated under the Indonesian and EU Voluntary Partnership Agreement. And the other group is independent forest monitors who regularly conducting forest monitoring in all across area of Indonesia. Some of the organization, they make a coalition known as Eyes on the Forest, whose the monitoring areas cover the island of Sumatra and Kalimantan. And there are also some other civil society organization who conduct forest monitoring as well, like Auriga, the FKL or Forum Konservasi Loser, Haka, and also of course Kacem Telapak. Some of you may have heard about Global Forest Watch platform. This platform serves data provision at global level, regional level, and also national level. And all the data mostly are spatial data comprising different kind of natural resource and also forest related data. The data that are included at the Global Forest Watch can be very useful in a way in forest monitoring effort. Can you play the video? One of the data that is provided by the Global Forest Watch is Lead Alert data, or the data of deforestation alert. The data has been generated since 2015, and it's also a near real-time data, which is generated every 8 to 14 days. And if you have a Global Forest Watch account, and if you subscribe to those data, if you subscribe to data, you will get notification email once there is an indication of tree removal in the area of your monitoring. And if you get the notification through emails, you can click the link provided by the email, and then it can go through the location where the deforestation is occurring, and then it also provides the coordinate and also the location where deforestation is found. And then Global Forest Watch also equipped by satellite imageries like Planet Mosaic and also Landsat or Sentinel, which is also very helpful and useful in forest monitoring. Once you get a notification of deforestation in your email, and then before you are preparing your field trip to do a ground checking, you can check with this recent satellite image just to ensure that the deforestation really occur in the area of your monitoring. This is important because for your information, the Lead Alert data is generated from optical satellite like Landsat and also Sentinel. This data is very dependable with the condition of atmospheric. So if the atmospheric condition is not really good, like it has a huge cloud cover, then the generation of data might be disrupted. So some false alert can be generated. So it's really strongly recommended to check with the most recent satellite data labeled at the Global Forest Watch before you're doing a field verification, because to ensure that the deforestation really occur in the area. Another tool which is also part of the Global Forest Watch family is Forest Watcher. Forest Watcher can be accessed through websites and also through application on your mobile phone. These tools or this application has allowed you to input your area of monitoring, or known as area of interest, and then also it provides you with a template where you can modify to type some of the questions that you need to answer during the field verification. And when you install your Forest Watcher at your mobile phone, and then you bring your mobile phone for the field verification or field checking, even in the area where internet connection is not there, or where the internet connection is unstable, you can use the mode, the offline mode, but you can still collecting the data. You can still answer all the questions from the reporting template. You can take the pictures, you can record the coordinate, and all the information that you put is stored in your mobile phone. And next time when you go back to the office, you get internet connection, all the information from your mobile phone will be automatically stored into the cloud, and it will be synchronized with the website. And when you are at the office, you can download the report, the information that you collected from the field, and then you can start making the report. Understanding that the Global Forest Watch data as well as Forest Watcher are very useful in forest monitoring, we try to introduce GFW and also Forest Watcher to some CSO in Indonesia. Before the pandemic started, we were able to conduct a face-to-face workshop of trainings, like what we did in Aceh during February 2020 and December 2019. But since the pandemic started, we have to shift our way of giving the training, so we do it online. And of course, conducting online training is not something easy. We're facing some challenges like technical issues, internet connection which is not stable, and to tackle those kind of challenges, we provide some more tools, like we develop guidelines of the training materials consisting of step-by-step on how to navigate the Global Forest Watch website, how to download the data, how to analyze the data, and things like that. And as well as the module, we also provide a tutorial video. So hopefully after the training finish, the participant can check the video and they can learn again from the training, and they can follow what were being taught during the training. In addition with giving a training to CSO, we also collaborate with HAKA and also JPIK to leverage the impact that we are trying to achieve. So annually, since a few years ago, the Global Forest Watch has give a small grant funding to selected organization, and HAKA has been receiving several times this grant. So since 2018, HAKA has received the Global Forest Watch small grant funding. And at the same year, we also developed our Pantau Jejak method, which I will explain later in the next slides. And in 2019, we tried to introduce the Pantau Jejak method to HAKA, and HAKA tried to introduce the method to the other stakeholders, like Forest Ranger and also Forest Management Unit in Aceh. And in 2020, we also conducted several training for CSO based in Papua, while HAKA also introduced the Global Forest Watch as well as Pantau Jejak method to the other stakeholder based in Aceh, like journalists and also regional police. And starting this year, we try to introduce Global Forest Watch, Forest Watcher, as well as Pantau Jejak with JPIK. And we collaborate with JPIK in checking the field or do the field verification into provinces in Central Kalimantan as well as in Jambi. And then at this year as well, HAKA tried to engage with different stakeholders like the university and national and sub-national government in Aceh to introduce Pantau Jejak method. So you might have heard about Places to Watch. This is the initiative developed by our colleagues at the Global Office in Washington, D.C. So they try to use Global Forest Watch data, collect alerts data at the global level, and try to detect deforestation and make a ranking and select only 5 highest area with indication of deforestation globally. And then the result of this analysis is published as blog post at the Global Forest Watch website. We tried to adopt the same initiative like Places to Watch, and we developed our Pantau Jejak method. But in Pantau Jejak, the scope area is only covering the area of Indonesia, and it's only specific to illegal deforestation. So legal deforestation is eliminated from the analysis, and the result of the analysis is also published in our WRI Indonesia website every 3 months period. In general, there are 5 stages of Pantau Jejak of Places to Watch for illegal logging. So first, we try to collect all the glad alerts data from the Global Forest Watch. We try to filter with the forest cover data and forest status data, and then we eliminate the legal deforestation. And in the next, the illegal deforestation, we try to cluster and then making the ranking. And we only choose 5 area with the highest indication of illegal logging. And then the result, we translate that into a narrative, a blog post, and publish that in our website. This year, we try to introduce Global Forest Watch and also Forest Watcher application, as well as the method of pantau jejak to our colleague JPIK, which we think it might be very useful in supporting the daily tasks. And in doing so, we're not only like giving the training, but we also, because JPIK have a good network across Indonesia, so we ask them to also collect field data as part of the mean of verification of our method of pantau jejak. So by now we have collaborated with JPIK in terms of like utilizing the method we developed, pantau jejak of places to watch for illegal logging in two provinces, Central Kalimantan as well as Jambi. And last year we also collaborate with FKL to monitor illegal logging activities and also to collect field data in Aceh. I hope the method of indication, the method of places to watch for illegal logging can also be implemented in other areas of Indonesia.
Thank you very much for this excellent presentation showing the power of information and the importance of information. As we know, for independent forest monitoring is not an easy task. It's certainly not a cheap task considering the size and accessibility of forests. So accessing information is very important to be able to zoom in and focus the monitoring efforts.
My name is Samson Pedragosa, the boyfriend of Delilah. It's an N actually. It's not. It's Samson. Thank you. Anyway, today I was invited to present the experience of Haribon as a non-state actor or a civil society organization in engaging with the forest policy processes in the Philippines. So the first slide that I just said, it's advocacy for a more participatory. Please go back. If you look at the picture of the first slide, it's the latest article that we got printed by by Rappler.com about the sad state of Philippine forest. Next slide, please. It says 7 million hectares of Philippine land is forested, but it's bad news. Why? Look at this. I just want, please allow me to show you a snapshot of Philippine forestry. Okay. We're supposed to have plus or minus 30 million hectares of land in about 7,100 islands, depending on high tide or low tide. And of the 30 million, we're supposed to have 15.8 million as forest lands. Okay, so in 2015, the remaining forest cover is just about 7 million. So 7 million out of 15.8, that leaves around 8.7 or close to 9 million of forest lands that are without actual forest. And since 1992, the Philippines has also established a system of protected areas through the NIPAS in 1992 and INAIPAS in 2018. And as of 2020, we're supposed to have 5.4 million hectares of protected areas. Again, if you compare that to the total forest land that we're supposed to have, that leaves you about 10.3 million of forest lands which are outside the protected area system. And presumably, these 10.3 million hectares of forest outside the protected area system is managed and governed under the current Presidential Decree 705 or the Revised Forestry Code of the Philippines, decreed in 1975, and through other policy issuances like executive orders and administrative orders that were issued through the years. Next slide, please. I just showed you the snapshot of the Philippine forestry to show you the challenges of forest governance in the Philippines. But my main topic for today is actually the role of non-state actors in forest policy development. Okay. Since 1987, when we had a new constitution, the role of civil society organizations in decision-making process, both social, political, and economic, at all levels, have been institutionalized. It says here, there are so many articles. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. But the role and existence of civil society in the Philippines predates 1987. Since the 1950s, when we had the rural reconstruction movements, in the 1960s, we have the formation of the associations of the so-called ethnic minority, which in today's more politically correct times, we refer to as indigenous peoples. The civil society organizations have already been playing significant role in policy development, not only in forest governance, but in all facets of public life and national development. In this slide, I included Memorandum of Agreement number 1 in 1974. This is a very important agreement. For the lack of a name, it was just referred to simply as MOA number 1. It is the first of its kind. We cannot discuss participation of non-state actors in forest governance in the Philippines. And we cannot discuss the fight for the rights of indigenous peoples, their ancestral domains and traditional territories, without ever mentioning Memorandum Order number 1. This Memorandum of Agreement number 1 was entered into by and between the Ikalahan tribe of Northern Luzon in the Philippines and the then Bureau of Forest Development of the Ministry of Natural Resources. This is the first time that a community was given the authority to manage their own forests and the natural resources therein. So this MOA number 1 paved the way for the concept of community-based forest management agreement in the Philippines. That culminated in 1995 when CBFM was adopted as the national strategy for forest protection and management in the country, and also enacted in 1987 the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. So it is worth mentioning that this MOA was obtained with the assistance of civil society organizations for a people's organization, both of which are part of what we call the non-state actors. Another lesson from MOA number 1 is that advocacy for policy and policy reform does not have to wait for better political fortunes or favorable political conditions. Because if you remember, Memorandum of Agreement number 1 was obtained at the height of martial law in the Philippines in 1974. And many consider those years as the dark period of Philippine history. Next slide, please. Now let me go to Haribon's advocacy. Haribon has been advocating for the conservation of all life in all its form. And we believe that doing so would need all hands on deck. Forest governance, similarly, would need a whole of nation approach. Okay. So in the last 5 years, with assistance from the European Union and our partner BirdLife International, we implemented the forest governance project in the Philippines. We have 2 advocacy agenda. 1, mainstreaming biodiversity issues in the policy advocacy and engagement in policy processes. What do we mean by that? Under this advocacy, Haribon leads the push for the enactment of a new forestry law. In 2010, we have our own version. It is referred to as the civil society version, the Forestry Resources Bill, to counter the Sustainable Forest Management Bill, which from us in the CSO, in the civil society, we look at it as an industry bill. So we said, let's have our own bill that would highlight the ecological services and functions and the role of forest in biodiversity conservation to counter the industry bill that from our point of view, we say it's a bill that, you know, what do you call these people who keep on insisting on doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So Haribon spearheaded the formation of what we call the Save Our Forest Network and launched our own advocacy for the civil society version of the forestry bill. And of course, the second one is an important element, advocating the right of indigenous peoples and local communities. Because in mainstreaming biodiversity issues, we work both at the national level and at the local levels. We work with local communities, indigenous peoples, and local government units. And our advocacy at the national level is informed by the wealth of data that we generate working with local communities and indigenous peoples, including local government units. Yesterday, my colleague at Haribon presented the CAME, the Citizens Action for Monitoring Ecosystems. It's a very good system helping everyone to become what we call a bantay gubat. That's why my hashtag, lahat tayo ay bantay gubat. We are all forest guards. So that is the message that we are trying to convey in our twin advocacy of mainstreaming biodiversity issues in forestry policy and advocating the rights of indigenous peoples and local communities as the priority sector that should be addressed in whatever forest policy we will be able to develop. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Now let me just, in a short and brief manner, discuss what we learned. Okay. One, forging partnerships and building alliances. When you try to push for policy reform, it's very difficult. You know, Haribon cannot do it alone. So we establish partnerships and build alliance with our other civil society organization, other stakeholders. We formed, as I mentioned earlier, in 2010 the Save Our Forest Network that pushed for the Forestry Resources Bill, and then a little later we're still operating as the Green Bills Network, pushing for so-called green bills, including the Sustainable Forest Management Act, the National Land Use Act, the Indigenous Peoples and Local Communities Conservation Act, and the Alternative Minerals Management Bill. So those are the 4 green bills that the Green Bills Network, of which Haribon is a significant member, is pushing. So that's what we did. We also engaged with the legislators. We were very successful in engaging with the legislators and the bureaucrats. When we say bureaucrats, those are the elements and the officers of the DENR, or the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, and the Forest Management Bureau. So in 2010, we were so successful because at the time, the Sustainable Forest Management Bill was supposed to be at the cusp of being approved by the Committee on Natural Resources, but we were able to stop it and have that particular bill withdrawn because we said it's not reflective of the sentiments of the whole of nation approach. It is just another industry bill. So we were able to successfully have it withdrawn, and the debate restarted. And the third one, evidence-based advocacy. From our point of view, it is very important to generate your own data and compare it with the data of the other stakeholders, mainly the government and the industry. You cannot advocate something out of nowhere from thin air. You have to have your own data, and that data must be ready for review by the other stakeholders that you are dealing with. The last one is a bit of good news because, you know, the debate in the halls of Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives between us, the civil society, and on the other hand, the DENR, FMB, the Philippine Wood Producers Association, and the Society of Filipino Foresters. They are all on the side of the SFM, and we are on the side of the FRB. It was not for the faint of heart, you know, and it was not for people that are not healthy, because otherwise they will just drop dead in the heat of and passion of the debates. But eventually, from 2010 to 2018, from being adversaries, and then probably we said, okay, it's about time. Now that we've got your respect, let's talk. Because, you know, the history is that in the Philippines, foresters like me, you know, my brother foresters, maybe not all foresters, have this misplaced notion that when it comes to forest governance, the foresters are the authority. If you are a wildlife biologist, no way. If you are an agriculturist, no way. But we tried to change that. Forest governance is not just for foresters. It's for everyone. It's for everyone. Lahat tayo. That's the problem. But now I think the other side have realized that. So from being adversaries, we become partners. And becoming partners is a lot better and healthier for all of us. Thank you. Next slide, please. Key insights and learnings. Okay. Well, it is important to involve a variety of non-state actors from the very beginning of the policy process. You know, the debate between the Forest Resources Bill and the Sustainable Forest Management Bill could have been avoided, I believe, if only there were more candor and honesty between the parties pushing the different versions of the bill. You cannot just surreptitiously, that's the term we use, surreptitiously request Congress to pass a bill without the scrutiny of the other stakeholders. And when we heard of it, using our legislative champions, we tried. And as I mentioned earlier, we were successful in having that particular bill withdrawn. So had we been all involved from the very beginning, which we did in the beginning of the 18th Congress, the heartache and the pain, I'm sorry for those who I hurt, would have been avoided if from the very beginning, we already involved the non-state actors. Number two, the quality of participation matters. It's really difficult if you want to fight with the big guys, you better carry with you a big bat, so to speak. So the quality of participation matters. Not all non-state actors or civil society organizations are equal in terms of capacity, expertise, and funds, and reach and clout. So we need to make sure that while we try to engage, we also try to build the capacities of the non-state actors, including the people's organizations and the local communities. Lastly, which is very important, is evidence-based research is a key strategy for policy advocacy. As I mentioned earlier, we cannot just advocate something out of thin air. You have to study it, build the data for it, and make sure that your data will stand the scrutiny of others so that in the end, you will have what you want. But having said that, legislation, the legislative process is a give and take process. So we give, we take. That's what happened in the history of the Sustainable Forest Management Bill. Okay, next slide, please.
Sorry, Mr. Pedrogosa.
Yes. Yes, this is
the running
last...
out of time. Thank you. Thank
you. Okay. So I'm just saying that I'm just showing the result of the advocacy from becoming adversaries to from being adversaries to becoming partners. Now the Sustainable Forest Management Bill is part of the updated Philippine Development Plan. Next slide, please. That's the last slide. It's very important. Okay, so for the first time, the proposed Sustainable Forest Management Act was approved on third and final reading by the House of Representatives on February 1, 2021. It was transmitted officially to the Senate for their own action on February 3, 2021. And at the Senate, we are still waiting for their action on this particular bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this excellent presentation showing what a very strong civil society can achieve, but also the responsibilities that come with a strong civil society to reconcile and to try and bring different stakeholders and opinions together. We now have a presentation, unless we go back to the video. If not, if we cannot, we go to the next presentation by Mr. Abu Meridian, the campaign manager of Kacem Telapak. And that's an independent forest monitoring organization in Indonesia, member of JPIK. Over to you.
Thanks, Bruno. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abu Meridian from Kacem Telapak. We based in Bogor, in Jakarta, Indonesia. Yeah. From the presentation, what we want to share in here, we want to share about the policy update and how the development of law enforcement in Indonesia and also the challenge for the civil society post the omnibus law. Please, next. Yeah, I believe my colleague from JPIK the day before, Ivan from JPIK, have presented about the SVLK. So if you look in here, almost 10 years, the SVLK will have around 9 times have make a revision. Yeah. So on the current years, on 2021. Where the SVLK before standing for the timber legislative action system, but right now the government changed standing for sustainable and also the legislative action system. So why I look on an SVLK, looks on the process. This system we developed since of 2003 through the multi-stakeholder process. So when the system released on 2009, the government make the system as mandatory. So on the system also recognize the function of the independent forest monitor or independent monitoring to look the implementation of the system. Then on 2010, we developed JPIK, the Indonesian Independent Forest Monitoring Network. And I believe the other network also coming up after that, like colleague in Sumatra, Kalimantan, and all the other network have doing the monitor for the SVLK. So on 2014, because after some case in Indonesia, then the government also put the security and access information for the independent monitoring put under the SVLK regulation. So yeah, this have an improvement on the process for the regulation. Yeah, Kacem Telapak and EIA, we make some report since 1999 until 2001, where we publish how the process on the ground until the market receives the legal timber, where in 1999 we published a record with the title Final Cut. We reveal the activity legal logging inside of national park on the Central Kalimantan at the time. Then after that, we also still following the case where a lot of the timber on the log size, they move to the other country. Then for 2005, we also published The Last Frontier. This report is quite make huge attention from the president, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono at the time in 2005, because from this report, the government make the operation on the ground to tackle the illegal logging. So if we look on the compare with the previous years, we compare with the current years, the modus also have changed on the grounds, and also the improvement for the land farmers also there is improvement on the process. Could we look on the next presentation, please? Next, please. Yeah, you can see in here under 1999 until 2005. Still a lot of logs from Indonesia sending to outside of to other country, like to China or maybe to Malaysia. Then coming out on the after 2005, after the government of Indonesia conduct some operation for tackle illegal logging, they change the modus. Some of them they put the logs on container. Then also they also change from logs become the some timber. So we can see in here they put the some timber on the container. Then they're selling to other country like China. Yeah. Learning from the process in Indonesia is really important. As independent monitoring, we can show how the process on the ground, yeah, to the public, so and also the government, so they can improve the regulation. So when you look the SPLK from 2009 until up now, there is 9 times, yeah, process nutrition. So this happened because we need to improvement from activity on the ground. We're learning from the process in Indonesia. It's important for us. We work together with the FIU, or the Financial Intelligence Unit, or in Indonesia we call it PPATK, Pusat Pelaporan Tindak Peristiwa Keuangan, where through the system we can look who is the person or the people in government receive this money, and through this system also through the anti-money laundering, we can also check how the country also involved on the process. So it's very important to work together with the FIU because we believe the process in Indonesia also have relation with the other country. Then when we have the process, I think it's important also we have like to involve the media. Yeah, when we have the case is very big, it's very important to give attention for the government to look or what happened on the ground. It's very also for us work together also with the media in the country. Then it's important also for the independent monitoring. Yeah, we conduct coordination, yeah, with the other network, because learning what we have happened in Indonesia, the connection is not only you have a connection with other country, some like China or Hong Kong. So it's very important to have like a communication, yeah, with the colleague from in abroad country. Yeah. At the beginning, when we have like the case of the logging before 2005, yeah, we can say it's only the low-level person going to the jails, yeah. But after 2013, when the government also using the anti-money laundering, yeah, it's quite have good attention, where the director of the company or the owner of the company is become the victim, and also kind of process for the jails. Yeah. So I think the problem from police, prosecutor, and judge, yeah, it's not only happen in Indonesia, but I believe also in the country, because when we look on the process, yeah, yeah, quite. If we look the one case, they have like a good connection, yeah, with the strong people on the region, or maybe on the country. Yeah, we can say it's very hard to push the case going to the jails. Yeah, but if you have like a good network and also good links with the other case in other country, I think we can make hubs. Yeah, the case not only in the region, like what we're trying to do right now with the FIU, how we can also engage also with the other country like China or maybe Hong Kong, because learning from our previous case on 2013, yeah, this clear, and the money came from Hong Kong that flew to Indonesia, then going to the region in Indonesia, like going to Papua. So the commitment from the stakeholder is not only important in monitoring it, it's very important for us, yeah, to tackle the case in on the grounds, yeah, because if we don't bring the case become the publicly, I believe the government will not hear the response from the civil society or from the independent monitoring. Yeah, when we look Indonesia, we have the SVLK since 2009. So this is a tool for bring the process through the multi-stakeholder. So yeah, we can say this not can handle all case in Indonesia, because we can look in Indonesia case is not only a problem about legal logging, but also the problem of deforestation. But from the SVLK, we can start learning how the process multi-stakeholders, not only from independent monitoring, but also how the commitment with the government, people from the other stakeholder also join the process to have a commitment to this the problem. So what we trying that time on 2016, learning from the process from the SLK, we're trying to influence the process on the ISPO from the palm oil. But yeah, at the beginning we can join the process, but after maybe around 1.5 years, we join the process for increasing the strengthening the ISPO. But then there's lack also from the government. So the commitment in here, I think learning from what we have like on the SVLK is very important for us, to improve the process for tackle illegal logging, and also for tackle deforestation in Indonesia. Then from what we have almost 20 years, there is improvement about the transparency, and also the involvement on the civil society on the process. So learning from the SVLK, I think this quite good, because not only the independent monitoring or maybe the civil society join in the process, but people from the practice, from the company, from the government, and also people from the university also join the process, how to increase and also to improve the system for tackle the illegal logging to aside from Indonesia. Then the last thing is how we can make sure also from the market country, they receive only the legal and also sustainable timber, because as you know, like learning from our case in Indonesia, there is a linking from the market, like China. They have like a demand to like for specific timber. Then they will send the money to some people in Indonesia. Then doing illegal logging or doing the illegal activity on the grounds. So we want have like good commitment also in here. Not only the commitment from the person country like Indonesia, but I believe the other country in here, like maybe Malaysia, or maybe the other country in Mekong area, like Vietnam, also Cambodia, or others. It's very important for us to have like strengthen the regulation in the other country. But on the market side, it's also important to improve the regulation. We know that China have revised the regulation on December, and also Japan have also revised the regulation also. Then also Korea and maybe Australia have also the regulation. The communication among both country, among the producers, producer country, and also the market country is really important to make sure it's only legal and also sustainable timber selling to the market. Yeah, I think that's from me, Bruno.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Abu. Thank you, Pak Abu, for illustrating another type of independent forest monitoring that is more embedded in government systems. And despite that, it remains difficult to trigger law enforcement action based on monitoring results but maybe it facilitates some of the participation in the forest policy reform, especially when it comes to SVRK implementation. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. We are now moving to the next presentation by Dr. Ernie Guyang from the Philippines. Over to you.
Can you show the slides, please? Good afternoon and good morning to everybody. I will focus my presentation basically on challenges and opportunities, partly constraints of community-based forest management in the Philippines. I'll do it quickly because some of those, some touch some of the policy areas. That's basically the picture. There is a picture of that we talk in Central Visayas, gives you an indication of one of the problems in the Philippines. Next, please. So we have institutions in the Philippines, and they have the mandate. And basically, DENR, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, is the major agency. They are responsible for conservation, management, development, and proper use. They're also responsible for licensing and regulation, so that the present and future generations of Filipinos will benefit. Next, please. And just to summarize, the mandate is very clear in the Philippines. If you look at this flow, we are about 70% of the Philippines are really in watershed. And if you look at the major benefits that we're getting from these areas, it's so huge, but it's also under different threats. And if you look at the whole benefits, it's very clear. Ecosystems, communities, enterprises, and public. And it should really contribute to the gross domestic product of the country. Next, please. And if you look at the system in the Philippines, we have the Staff Bureau that is in charge of policies and programs on forestry in the Philippines. And they would advise the regional offices, develop plans, assist in monitoring and evaluation, and undertake studies. Next, please. And as mentioned by Sam, we have the Policy Marching Order, Executive Order 263 in 1995, and I did not mention here, we have also the Indigenous Peoples' Right Act in 1997 that provides a lot of access for the IPs to address their tenure issues and development needs in those in public lands. Next, please. But if you look at the system in the Philippines, you have the Staff Bureau at the Manila level, central level, and they develop policies, and the field units of the department implements these policies on the ground with the programs and implementation and so on. And so we see in most cases a challenge here. There's the gap here is really you have to conserve, you have to manage, you have to develop and use it properly. On the other hand, you have to license and regulate the use. Now, the balance between development, protection, development, and regulation is really very tough in the Philippines, and that's the reason why you have field units who are confused of what they will have to focus into. Next, please. And so we have the case. This was presented by Sam, but if you look at the case, we have about 15 million hectares and about 5 to 6 million hectares, 4 to 5 million hectares are really devoted to protected area management in the Philippines. So we have the Forestlands, about 11.1 million hectares that is occupied by at least 25 billion people. And these are supposed to be devoted for both protection and conservation of in watersheds and production forest lands. So that's really the major challenge. So about 8 to 9 million hectares of full of communities that are really in dire need in terms of land cover. Next, please. That's the land cover of the Philippines. Next. Can you click, please? Okay, this is the latest picture that we have in terms of land cover. I just would like to highlight here that, you know, if you total the shrubs, the wooded grasslands and grasslands, that's about, you know, about almost 30% of the area really an opportunity to develop something. These areas have very low productivity in the Philippines. Yes, next please. So, and because of the low productivity that we have, it's very understandable. The sector itself, which covers 11.1 million hectares of the Philippines, is not a major player in the national economy. We have a negative contribution of minus 26.7 in our gross domestic product in the Philippines. You have the communities, you have the mandate, you have the lands, and here we are. The outcome is not really that good in terms of, you know, contribution to the national economy. Next, please. And, you know, low productivity, low income. The next is, of course, basically high incidence of poverty, which is about, in this case, 34 to 35% of our upland farmers are living below poverty line. So it's really the situation in the Philippines. Next. So what do we do? Next. I'll just go quickly because I'd really like to have an open forum here later. The government has been the biggest investor for improving livelihood and land cover in the Philippines. This is a picture of our national feeding program, spending more than about $1 billion now for the last 10 to 12 years, and with full communities. But next please. But the main result is also problematic. You have a lot of communities with so much investment, and here's the case. We are a net importer of wood in this part of the world. We are importing about 6 to 8 million cubic meters of our timber just to be able to meet domestic demand. We are using a lot of fuel wood that's endangering our remaining forests. We are importing some of the non-timber forest products that our industry needs. And, you know, there's a lot of industries that really depend on the forestry sector, but here's an opportunity to ignite the economy, but something is wrong with our system. We have the mandate, we have the communities, we have the institution, but the translation process of how we translate that mandate, that vision into actions on the ground is just so full of confusion. Next, please. Oh, here we go. That's basically the area that we have. And, you know, it's really the concluding remarks that I'd like to make here is no one is healthy because everybody is poor. You know, and basically what's happening here is that the communities don't really have an access to assets. Like, you know, they have, you know, unstable tenure. They can't even use the tenure to access funding from public government financing. You know, most of them are, you know, need a lot of capacity building, especially access to technologies. They need a lot of support to organize their communities, and they need the support of the local governments to ensure that these areas are put into productive manners. In short, we have 11 million hectares, 25 million people with very poor access to capital assets that can improve their land, improve land cover, and improve the ecosystems, including land cover of the Philippines. So in a sense, that's really our major challenge. It's really how do we ensure that our implementing rules and regulations are not siloed, they are simple enough, they are deregulated, that our focus is really both on development and production, smallholder development process, not the big industry type, with balancing both the use and the regulation process to be able to respond to the increasing needs of our population from our 11.1 million hectares in the Philippines. That's basically a short challenge that I'm proposing. As if you look at the case of the Philippines, there's a lot of opportunities, but also running into a lot of hurdles in terms of making it work. We have to get our act together somehow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this, again, excellent presentations about the Philippines situation, showing that there is a need to balance conservation and production, and that the involvement of communities is a key aspect to success. We are now moving to the next presentation by GeoDipa, and this presentation will be presented by Ms. Andika Yudiansia, who is the head of the Health and Safety and Environment Department of GeoDipa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Bini, for the time. Good day to all of you. Today, I would like to present the private sector in forest conservation, that GeoDipa involvement in the one forest in the Indonesia. First of all, I would like to apologize that the presentation should be presented by our president director, but suddenly he got a meeting invitation by the government, so he appointed me to present this presentation in this forum. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Andika Yudiaji. Currently, I'm a HCC manager in the GeoDipa Patwa site. And if you see in the picture in here, this is the Curug Awi or Awi waterfall. This is waterfall in the mountain Patuha. This is the one of source water source in the Patuha, and this water source is livelihood for the villagers, for the farmer, for the tourism, and of course for GeoDipa. This issue is unite us, so we have to collaborate to save the forest, to save the water source, and also to save the biodiversity in the Mount Patuha. Next, please. As we know that this is the overview of GeoDipa. As we know that the Indonesia is second greatest geothermal energy source in the world, and the number one, if I'm not wrong, is United States. And currently, the potential geothermal in Indonesia is up to 23 gigawatt, but it's utilized. But it's utilized still on the 2 gigawatt. So the GeoDipa is a state-owned company under the Ministry of Finance, and under the PLN or electricity state-owned company. And our business is in the upstream and downstream, including the activities we produce the power and transmit the electricity to the power plant. Currently, we have 4 working area. First is in the area Patuha. This is in the West Java, and we generate installed capacity is 55 megawatt. And then the second in the Dieng, in the Central Java, we generate 55 megawatt. And we have two others field area. This is the Candi Umbul Tolomoyo in the Central Java and the Arjuna Liram in the East Java. And but it's still on the exploration. So in the Patuha, we are working in the protecting forest and the tea plantation, and we are near the border of the natural preserve of Gunung Tilu. Next. Okay. And you see in the pictures, this is how the geothermal works. Geothermal is a renewable energy because it doesn't generate from the fossil fuel or coal to heat the water, but we use the magma as heat source, and this doesn't not emit the carbon as well as the other greenhouse gases that cause the global warming or the climate change. So the geothermal need the forest to retain the rainwater or meteorite water to enter the earth or to the reservoir. So in the reservoir, the steam we would extract using the production well to generate turbine and generate electricity, and then the residual water or burn water would inject again to the reservoir using the injection well. So it's closed loop. Because that the forest is very critical component of geothermal for the production and sustainability. The company want to take very good care of the forest area and its concession and beyond. Next. Within the concession, JPIK is responsible to maintain the forest area is 17 hectares, but actually the forest area that support our operation is much larger because we are working in the near with the natural preserve and in the protecting forest. So the forest of Mount Patuha, that is critical part because there is a three watershed. First is Cipuni watershed, Citarum watershed, and Cilaki watershed. That are providing water resource for three districts, which is Bandung district, Cianjur district, and Garut district. And it also home to the most recent endemic wildlife such as you see in the picture, Javan hawk eagles, Javan green magpie, Javan gibbon, Javan leopard, and many more. Its ecosystem provides the beautiful scenery for development of the tourism destination of the Ciwidey. So, understanding this forest value, we work with the local community and environmentalists like Burung Indonesia to ensure the forest and wildlife is protected and unharmed. The joint initiative is begun by JPIK, community, Burung Indonesia, to ensure that forests are monitored, wildlife hunting is ceased, and the local community obtain support to develop productive sustainability livelihood option. Okay, this is our one of innovation, biodiversity ecosystem service monitoring, but usually we call participatory or participatory biodiversity monitoring. Burung Indonesia and JPIK develop web-based biodiversity application using the mobile phone, but if I'm not wrong, it's still in the Android basis. This application has proven to be quite robust, user-friendly, and this is inexpensive. Observation data is recording using a digital form that are used online and offline and integrated with the GPS of the device. The advantage is first, the storing data is real time, and then it's it's user friendly because it's easy. And then we want like a citizen science or a community journalism to collect data of biodiversity. To use the system, it's just easy. We just need to scan the barcode or tap the browser like bit.ly/monitoring-desa. The tool is designed help with the obtain information related to biodiversity, natural resource, as well as disturbance as indicator in the evaluation of ecosystem services. The pilot has been started in one village of nearby forest concession. The assess the biodiversity and the other ecosystem. Information result from the assessment is used for further planning potential intervention and conservation or productivity resource management. This is the documentation during the ecosystem services monitoring. First, we are setting the basic agreement on schedule and other technical arrangement with the participant bodies, conduct participant training and tools and methodology, like tool user training and awareness from the agency or forest management. And then implementation of the ecosystem services monitoring. If you see in the corner, the people on the stage, this is the village, chief of village, like a drama, we released the team to the forest. And then we collect data and compilation and analysis and reporting, and then dissemination of report. Information recorded included first bird and mammal diversity, endemic tree species, wildlife or habitat treated, water source, ecotourism spot, invasive and alien species, maybe illegal logging, encroachment, poaching, garbage, and others. The participant of this monitoring is first is Geodipa Energi, and then Burung Indonesia, Perum Perhutani or Forest Management Unit, and BKSDA or Natural Reserve Conservation Agency, and then Community Forestry or Kelompok Tani, and village administration. So this is the monitoring result. The result ecosystem services monitoring. There is a 21 type of natural resource around the important to the villagers being assessed for its state, potential, and threat. And there is 29 encounter during monitor, such as encroachment, bird mammal trap, rabies, across the area 131,000 meters. The result of biodiversity monitoring, there is a 207 encounters of 65 bird species, and there is a 14 encounters of 7 mammal species. Besides those activity, Geodipa should conduct the conservation education too, or awareness, like this is the public webinar. The tema is bersama melestarikan keanekaragaman hayati di Gunung Patuha, and then land rehabilitation through the tree plantation with the stakeholders. And in the corner, you see the many of people. This is the student of primary school. We invited 4 primary school to join us to conduct the education about the environment and then tree plantation. Other than that, we are improving the management of coffee plantation of the local community, which normally practice Tendelang Adopt Tradition. The capacity building cover agriculture practices like crop distance, seed tree, and then harvesting technique and sale like sorting or wrap the cherry, and producing the organic compost instead of the dependent to the chemical fertilizer. And then we got the agroforestry cafe demo plot with the 0.5 hectares, and this is become the learning center for the local farmer and located close the village forest. Next. Okay, thank you. Maybe just that for our presentation. Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you very much for this presentation, which is a bit of an eye-opener, shows that the private sector as a non-state actor can also contribute to conservation, forest governance, and also community engagement. And maybe this is also a hint at the civil society to increase these synergies with the private sector, as long as there's no conflict of interest and objectives, of course. I think we now have our final presentation, a recorded presentation by TCA and PNG. I hope the video works this time.
I would like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional landowners on which we meet today. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Today I stand on the durable country of far north Queensland in Australia. We say this to reconcile our differences between the invaders, the colonisers, my people, and those whose land we have taken, Indigenous people. I know we have brought a great deal of pain and suffering to the First Nations people on this land and on many lands throughout the world. On behalf of my family and my ancestors, we say sorry for all the hardships and atrocities we have put you through and for taking your land. Indigenous people comprise of less than 5% of the world's population, and yet they own and manage 80% of the global biodiversity and forested ecosystems around the world. With that, I ask you to keep this front of mind as I speak of my experiences working with Indigenous people in Papua New Guinea. My name is Jean Thomas, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Tengkalei Conservation Alliance. I've been working in Papua New Guinea with my husband Jim for nearly 19 years. The Tengkalei is a critically endangered tree kangaroo that is found in the northern part of Papua New Guinea in the Torricelli mountain range. It is the only place in the world where you will find 3 species of tree kangaroos. The Waimang and the grizzled are also found here, and their decline is due to overhunting of the species for food consumption by the local communities. We currently work with 43 Indigenous communities who own this area of land where the tree kangaroos live, the Torricelli mountain range. It's also home to rich biodiversity with 50% of the PNG bird species found here, 40% of the mammal species, and 75% of the frogs and reptiles. Papua New Guinea is also very culturally rich with over 850 different language groups, and we work with 11 of those language groups. Our main aim is to establish the conservation area to protect it from large-scale logging and mining, which are all planned for by the PNG government. And we have submitted a proposal to establish the conservation area, and we await government approval. Forest ownership in Papua New Guinea is determined in one way, and that's the genealogy. 97% of land is privately owned by the local communities. This is determined by traditional storytelling and knowing the names of one's ancestors and the areas of land, their spiritual stories and ancestral stories that go way back for thousands of years. Genealogy cannot be written down for fear someone will steal this knowledge and claim the land as their own. Boundary lines are rarely linear and follow landscapes. Rivers and stories and trees and rocks are all landmarks and tracks to determine boundaries. All of these basic rules contradict the Commonwealth system of governance, and yet Indigenous people around the world are expected to adapt and follow this system no matter what. So we speak of forest governance. Governance for whom? In PNG, forests have been managed and governed successfully for thousands of years by the local people, and it's only now, recently, that these forests are under threat, and that's because of the international and external forces. Governments write policy and laws as if they own the forests. Our role as non-state actors, I believe, at the Tengkalei Conservation Alliance is we are the facilitators, arming the local people with the skills and the knowledge and the power they need to speak to higher levels of government and companies to have their voices heard. So despite all of these fundamental challenges, we have managed to come up with a system of governance that has evolved from nearly 2 decades of working with the local people. The first thing is it's inclusive. We have 50-50 men and women representatives for all of our memberships. Powerful because advisory committees can speak directly with our board. Everyone has a say. It's a bottom-up approach, meaning the village membership elects all the speaking and voting members on behalf of their villages. The employees are from the villages themselves. There are no external fly-in and fly-out consultants or employees who are based in cities far, far away. Everyone is local. Landowners are recognised by participation and signatories on projects and their design. We follow free, prior, informed consent in everything that we do as an organisation. We've developed over 40 policy and procedure documents that not only represent our organisational culture, but help ensure the sustainability of our work long after we've gone. We have a benefit sharing system that's based on key criteria, and it's assessed by the staff and the stakeholders. We have project agreements that are from the household, clan and village level, depending on the project. And the committees are established to help complement the implementation of a project as well as the sustainability. So we have water, sanitation, hygiene or WASH committees and conservation area management or CAM committees. We've also implemented infrastructure to support the governance. So we have a training and research station at Lumi, Sundown Province in Papua New Guinea. That's where we conduct our meetings and workshops. We also provide basic items like pen and paper to help people record information and phones for communication, as well as the using of the apps I'll talk about in a moment. Transport is also really important to keep people moving from one village to another. All of this assists our forest governance. In terms of biodiversity conservation, we believe our role is to first recognise what the threats are. So in PNG, we have 2 major threats, the hunting as well as deforestation and degradation from logging and subsistence agriculture. So to mitigate those threats, there are 2 major conservation strategies that we implement. One is to establish hunting moratoriums and establishing the protected area. We monitor those strategies with formal and informal biodiversity monitoring. The hunting moratorium has been established since 1999. Distance sampling has shown us that the hunter moratorium has worked, from over 100 animals to now over 300 animals. Even though they're still critically endangered, the populations, we believe, are growing. This is complemented with food security projects like fish, rabbit, rice and gardening projects. We are aiming to establish the conservation. As I said, the government has received our submission and there is simply a lack of political will to finalise the gazettal process at this stage, but we are hopeful they will implement it by the end of this year. The second part of the question is, how can civil society organisation bridge the gap between public and private interests? So just determining what those interests are. Everyone is interested in money. And the only difference I can see is the public and the private sector are willing to cut down a rainforest to get that money, whereas a Indigenous person, the local resource owners, would prefer to see their rainforest stay standing. We believe our role as a non-state actor is to ensure the local people are aware of what all of those options are. And with the emergence of a green economy, we believe forests will be more valuable standing than being cut down for timber. How do we bridge the gap? Well, we do that with phone apps. We've worked in partnership with SEPA and Kacem put together the Look and Gather phone app. This was a project funded by the Global Environment Facility, a UNDP project based on the United Nations Monitoring Evaluation Tracking Tool. It asks a series of questions to collect information at that local perspective. It does have a report an issue function, which gives local people a voice directly to SEPA, to the national government. In terms of forest governance, this really is quite it ticks all the boxes. It's quite a powerful tool, but due to a lack of political will, the app is no longer in use. This is a classic example of governments appearing to be doing the right thing and using external funding for the lifetime of the grant, but once the grant ends, the innovation and the learning and the knowledge is lost. So we've decided to build our own app. It's called Mother Nature, and it is basically collecting all of the data that we need, and anyone can access this data from their phones. The real benefit of this is that data is accessible in real time as soon as it's connected to the internet, and we can design this in a way that Indigenous knowledge can be included to monitor the forest condition. So we've included questions like, are the ancestors talking to you today? Are there spider webs covering the track, or can you hear the cicadas calling? These are all local Indigenous knowledge criteria that assesses forest condition. All of this information can easily be transferred to governments, to other working groups, academics, and help inform policy or increase the inclusiveness when it's needed. A final part of this question is, how can we build capacity of the CSOs and their local, national and regional workshops? When our staff reported illegal logging and government roads being built on their land, we did two things. From Australia, we reached out to our networks where we were able to gather satellite imagery of the area on a day-to-day basis to follow the impact. This was sent around to all of our networks, and it turned out to be not a case of what we knew, but whom we knew. And we knew people in high places, and we knew the people at the local level on the ground who told us where to look. The second part was our project officers got to work and negotiated with the government and the company workers on the ground, pleading with them to stop cutting down the trees until they followed a proper process, arming themselves with the free, prior, informed consent criteria. The satellite imagery we were able to generate was shared widely and helped raise awareness at mongabay.com, but the real impact happened on the ground with our local staff who were speaking directly with those workers, and they stopped the road construction. To me, this is evidence our capacity building has worked and has been successful. So how have we done this? Well, through a variety of environmental education programs, basic things like rainforest biodiversity, climate change, carbon trading training, all using experiential learning techniques like drama, songs and puppets. We've also evolved that to introduce scientific methodology like distance sampling, camera trapping and cyber tracker and SMART. How can we build capacity of the CSOs and their local, national and regional workshops? When our staff reported illegal logging and government roads being built on their land, we did two things. From Australia, we reached out to our networks where we were able to gather satellite imagery of the area on a day-to-day basis to follow the impact. This was sent around to all of our networks, and it turned out to be not a case of what we knew, but whom we knew. And we knew people in high places, and we knew the people at the local level on the ground who told us where to look. The second part was our project officers got to work and negotiated with the government and the company workers on the ground, pleading with them to stop cutting down the trees until they followed a proper process, arming themselves with the free, prior, informed consent criteria. The satellite imagery we were able to generate was shared widely and helped raise awareness at mongabay.com, but the real impact happened on the ground with our local staff who were speaking directly with those workers, and they stopped the road construction. To me, this is evidence our capacity building has worked and has been successful. successful. So how have we done this? Well, through a variety of environmental education programs, basic things like rainforest biodiversity, climate change, carbon trading training, all using experiential learning techniques like drama, songs and puppets. We've also evolved that to introduce scientific methodology like distance sampling, camera trapping and cyber tracker and SMART. But the real difference, I think, is that we've evolved our training to be more around personal development and growth. We have done this in line with developing our staff's capacity to manage projects and also the local leaders in terms of their leadership capability. So project management has been in the form of leadership training, financial literacy, as well as emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and the language of governance has also been really important to develop their capabilities. At the regional and national level, it's quite simple. You just need to get involved. TCA is the first and only member of the IUCN in PNG. This has led to being involved in other groups like Protected Area Working Group, Forest Task Force, Pacific Island Roundtable, and other groups like the UN Met Working Group. And since COVID, it has forced us to hand over our leadership to the local communities. And this has always been on our agenda, but COVID has made this happen right now, and it's been a real blessing. It's helped us identify those natural born leaders and mentoring them and giving them the opportunity to lead. And this has been key to their success in this area. And that's only come about because we, myself and my husband, have been willing to let go of control. And this is when we talk about capacity building, not just to talk about it in terms of Indigenous people, but our own personal capacity and what we need to learn and adapt in order to create change. And finally, lessons very quickly is everyone has an agenda. So this means that everyone is going to give meaning to certain things, and I ask you to consider the meaning of forest for Indigenous people and listening and learning from Indigenous people, because I think they have a lot to teach us and they have a very different perspective on how to do things. And finally, when we talk about governance, can we please keep it simple? The clock is ticking and we only have 7.5 years left to stop 1.5 degree increase in global temperatures, and we simply cannot waste any more time with high-level bureaucracy, negotiations, discussions, and even forums like this, the legal barriers that are in place that stop us from protecting the rainforest, because really at the end of the day, that's all we want to do, is to stop the rainforest from being destroyed. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. It reminds us of the important role of civil society and organizations like TCA in representing the interest and defending the interest of local communities. It also tells us how different things are in the Pacific, and how inspiring things, how much we can learn from this region that is often underrepresented. We now have a few more minutes to go through. I was going to ask the team, the BirdLife team that has been dealing with the Q&A, to maybe give us a bit of a highlight of the main questions, the more strategic responses from the presenters, so we can have maybe an overview. And if there is time left, we will be able to allow the floor to ask any additional questions. So I'm passing on to the BirdLife team. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. So my name is Pusendra Satel. I work as the Global Coordinator for Forest Policy in BirdLife International Policy Team here in Cambridge, UK. So I have been tasked with the monitoring of these, some of the questions we have received. So thank you for your interactive and providing a number of questions. I'm just going to summarize some of the questions we have got. Obviously, I had encouraged the panelists to respond to you directly in the Q&A, so you can look into the questions and the answers from the panelists as well there. But in terms of the number of questions that came were mainly regarding the role of some of the information that, for example, to WRI, and then also to the others working in this monitoring. Then there was a question about what is the impact that you have been able to achieve in terms of reducing corruption, land use abuse, and also conflict management, and so on. There was also some of the queries from the participants in relation to what are the follow-up aspects you can do in terms of policy advocacy and so on. And then the other questions were more into more elaboration and the sharing of the experience, insights, and learning in terms of the policy advocacy at the national level. For example, the presentation from Haribon team, and also how we can ensure the participation of local people and indigenous people in terms of the law enforcement, policy development, implementation of those policy, and also in terms of the monitoring as well. So those are the aspects that came. And there were also broader aspect about, we talked about obviously in terms of the monitoring, there is one aspect, but that also requires broader governance reform, judicial, and also role of the state actors and non-state actors of different kinds. So how we go beyond that in terms of having cooperation and collaboration between both the state actors and the non-state actors as well. So that are the kind of aspects that was raised in the Q&A. So I've just tried to group these questions. So maybe I think it will be a wonderful opportunity to hear from the panelists in terms of going back to the aim of the session about how to bridge the gap between the non-state and state actors, non-state actors of different kinds, particularly from the bottom of the indigenous people and local communities as well. So how we can enhance and strengthen their roles. So maybe panelist members would like to answer in this broad question. Maybe starting from, for example, the Haribon's case in terms of the policy advocacy, how you ensure and strengthen the role of local communities and indigenous people in policy advocacy, and then get their voice at the national policy making processes.
Well, thank you, Pushendra. Okay.
Can I just add a nuance to this question? I mean, we have had examples of the Indonesian example, because such a big country in terms of diversity, but we had examples of independent forest monitoring networks that are part of a system, government system, the SVLK, another network that maybe was less connected to the government system. What are the pros and cons of these connections, no connections, and how do we handle this? And how does it translate into actually forcing the government to enforce the law, to get to the people and their wrongdoing in terms of forest governance?
In the Philippines, we are a bit fortunate because we have some opportunities, even in the absence of a new Philippine forestry law. We have existing policies like the executive orders adopting the strategy, the CBFM as a strategy for forest protection. And then on top of that, we also have the local government code of 1991, which devolves some forestry functions from the national agencies to the local government units. And we are trying to use and maximize those opportunities at the LGUs, especially now with the recent development, a Supreme Court decision that adds more funds to LGUs, the Mandanas ruling. Then the LGUs would have more capacity in conducting forest protection activities under their forest land use plans, which I know Ernie here is very familiar with the FLUC process. So that is a very good opportunity for local communities to participate in forest policy processes at the local level. For indigenous peoples, of course, we don't have to belabor the point that we have an Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act enacted in 1997, and that gives them enough leeway and maneuverability to really participate in forest governance. Thank you.
any other panelist member would like to bring your insights, probably from the bottom up, so like in the TCA, maybe Jean would like to highlight how we can include indigenous people and local communities.
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's about relationships in Papua New Guinea. So at all levels, actually. So for us, you know, living in the communities and not just flying in and flying out like a lot of other expats do in the conservation sector, that's been really key. And, you know, we raised our child in PNG as well. We traveled to all the villages on foot and, you know, ate the local food. And that was a really important part in gaining trust with the local communities and becoming, you know, the culture of our organisation is very much like a big family. And, you know, how we operate and how we work is not hierarchical. It's really just like a family with relationships and negotiating relationships. And I would say that the same thing has occurred with our staff, communicating with local level government, provincial government, national government. It's been relationship building. So just knocking on the door and saying hello, and even just, you know, my husband will often go and have a drink at the bar with somebody and have a chat. And it's those informal conversations that we have with people that I think has been really key to the longevity of us being there, but also the influence, I guess, that we've had in creating what we've done in 20 years. So that would be my response to that.
Thank you. Maybe I think at this point also, I would like to highlight the private sector as one of the key non-state actors and probably more influential as well in some way. So how can we develop relationship and trust between the state actors and non-state actors, and how, you know, what role do you think private actor can play more importantly? Maybe GeoDPA representative can highlight. Otherwise, let's, because I'm conscious of the time, so maybe I'll hand over to Mr. Chair and then conclude the session and with his final remarks.
Thank you. Can I just ask, all these questions and answers that were posted today, how are they going to be shared with participants?
So we will provide a summary of this event as well, and we'll come back to the participants with the report, as well as we'll try to respond to the individual questioner as well.
Okay, excellent. Now it's now my task to kind of summarize this session, which is always a bit of a challenge given the quality, but also the diversity of the presentations and the countries and the topics. But if I may try and summarize the different presentations, I think the TCA presentation in PNG was really a reminder of the important role of proximity that civil society can provide when it comes to defending the interest of local communities and engaging in local communities in a way that maybe other stakeholders cannot or have difficulties doing. It's a very important aspect of having these people's voices heard. Yeah, so civil society definitely has this comparative advantage that maybe other stakeholders have less. We heard from quite a few experiences from the Philippines. We realize that a strong civil society, and this is not the case in all countries, there are countries with very weak civil society because the nature of the government or for different reasons. But in a country where civil society takes a lead role, like in the Philippines, in policy reform and advocacy, we also realize that with this lead role and this presence, political and local presence, that there's also responsibilities in terms of reconciling the different views, and especially when it comes to conservation versus development and production. And some of the presenters highlighted the need to keep communities and communities' interests and their development central in this nexus. Yeah. The WRI and the JPIK presentations in Indonesia were good examples of strong networks that bring together local monitors, local presence, and link them with national level data, even international data in some cases, and how this combination of the two is a very powerful tool to monitor what is happening in the forest and to bring this information to policymakers and decision makers. We saw that there is a difference between informal and formal. And when I say informal, I mean maybe not formally recognized in a government system like the SVLK, but there are, I'm sure, strengths and weaknesses of both systems. And then finally, and last but not least, the example of GeoDipa in Indonesia shows that the private sector is also a very important non-state actor. You've got, of course, a variety of private sector and private sector businesses, and not everything is reconcilable with conservation. But there are many examples where it is reconcilable with conservation and people's rights. And I think it's a good wake-up call for civil society to seek these synergies with the private sector. Not just with governments, or that this private sector connection is quite important. So thank you very much for all the presenters and the 100 and something participants who were with us today. I'm now giving the floor back to the organizers, which I would like to thank, of course, for organizing this event and for asking me to chair. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Bruno, and a huge thanks to our presenters today. We meet again tomorrow. Tomorrow is a bit of a long day. We'll start off with a panel discussion, reflecting on what we have covered over the week, but also looking into the future, the immediate and also long-term future in terms of COP26 and also beyond. So thank you, everyone, and all the people that have been participating in our forum today. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.